Everybody, how's it going? We are back on the old camper here, and I am starting the fiberglass. I have repaired this one. You can still see a crack there. If I take some acetone down it, I have to get my brush wet again. You can really see that crack there, but I have glassed over it and sanded it. I have used the kind of multi-directional, the stuff they call matte versus cloth. So fiberglass matte is this stuff, and that's what's on the front of this trailer. And then the fiberglass cloth, can't talk today, fiberglass cloth is this stuff. This is much more flexible, and you can shape it to any shape you want pretty much. You can't shape this as nicely, and it wants to kind of gum up. And you can't, it's a little bit thicker than the cloth, but you can separate it in layers. Let's see if I can do it here with one hand. If you're real careful, you can separate it and pull it to a thinner layer, and then you can shape it. The cloth, the woven stuff, is a little bit easier to hide when you go to feather it in, so I'm going to probably use it kind of on the front here. It'll just be easier to kind of work it back in. And I've gone around on the trailer and I've hit a few spots. This corner was all busted up, and you can actually still see my cloth on that one where I put the cloth in, but you can see split that was all the way down. And this has a bunch of cracks, a bunch of hairline cracks down that I'm gonna have to re-resin and reconstruct basically. But I'm starting to build up this little curve here, so we'll put another layer on, build that up. These are where the hinges go, and the replacement hinges we have don't have the same hole setup as this. So I've sanded that and we'll cover that up. This had a big hole up here, so I'm working on kind of fixing that. Let's see. This is a hinge. I have put fiberglass cloth on the back. This will go drill into the board that goes across, so it's going to be pretty strong, but I'm going to go ahead and fill it all the way because the holes are going to be in a different spot. Same thing over here. Fix that one. Let's see what else. Oh, this guy I'm working on, and I should have clamped this because it's kind of going in, but I'll just keep working on it. This has a piece of trim, comes down to about right there, so you're not going to see that anyway. Just needs to be kind of strong. And then I think I'll go ahead and work in another layer right here to add some strength to that, since I'm already glassing there anyway. Another hinge hole, and then this one. This, I fixed the top, and it still kind of wanted to kind of toe in a little bit, so I've braced it up in the most redneck way possible, added some tension to it, and then I repaired a place here that was split up so that I could then kind of clamp it in sections so that we can hopefully kind of keep that curve. I use wax paper to cover everything that I want to pull off later. Works pretty well. Gets stuck a little bit sometimes, but so I'll repair all that from the backside, and then once I get those, let me see if I can show you those cracks I was talking about. I've got them mostly covered, but kind of right here. So once I get those sections in, then I'll run a strip across anywhere that I can on the backside, and hopefully it'll hold its shape when we go to release those clamps. Unfortunately, I gotta have all three of those in to hold the shape correctly, because if I only put one in and I glass up here, and then I go to kind of force it back in its spot, it's gonna make the part I just glass bubble or kind of bow and flex out where I don't want it. So we're gonna try and do it this way. Worst case scenario, we gotta cut it out. It's not a big deal. It's fiberglass. That's the cool thing about fiberglass. It's really not that difficult. And then here, there's a low section here where this goes in. It is busted on the backside. I'm gonna leave there repair. It's not terrible. That's the best repair they did. So I will just go on and patch that over with another piece, and I'm probably going to use a pretty big piece just to cover that. That's pretty busted up back on the backside. And then this is all busted up too, so we'll fix that. So I got a lot of fiberglass work to do, but if I could get these two structural areas done so we can kind of jump in and start working on the front, that would be awesome. I cut a section of the frame out back here and went and had it made. Warner Steel. thank you so very much. I took that section out, took it up to Warner Steel in Indianapolis, and within a couple hours they called and said it was done and ready to be picked up. So they are super awesome people to deal with. Customer service is their #1 thing. And it helps to have friends in the steel business when you're doing what we do. So huge shout out to them. I had them make me 2 10-foot pieces, so we'll just make a box back here as well. One to put the fiberglass on, and then a lip to put the floor on. So it may be some Z channel, woo, which is over here. So that is ready to go. So I'm going to jump back on this fiberglass and get that kind of taken care of. Hopefully we'll weld the Z channel in and kind of build the frame out where we want it to go. And I thought if we did that back here too, that would allow us to mount the spare tire if we chose to do that. So I may go ahead and just make a cross brace here in the middle for the spare tire to mount. And I'm going to measure my area so the tire can hopefully be kind of recessed as far as we can up in there. So hopefully it doesn't show from the bottom of the trailer. It'd just be really nice to have it, you know, right here. Sometimes you just gotta make it worse before you make it better. It looks like when they originally made this trailer, they used the mat on the outside, and then the inner layer is the woven fabric. Over here it was splitting. I've been down at one time. I don't know if you can see it or not. I've been down at one time to try and correct where the two halves were splitting. So I'll go over that again with just some resin. Just try to keep that from delaminating. You can really see it right there, the two colors. So I think the front one is matte and the back one is the fabric, the woven fabric. And they are quite a bit different in thickness. You can really see it right there. So we are just layer upon layer. The full setup time on the resin I'm using is 2 hours, and I don't want to use a hair dryer or anything to kind of speed up the process, just because heat gun, that kind of thing, causes cracking. We don't need any additional cracking here. We've already got enough going on. So you can see where I put maybe you can try to get the right light. All those little cracks, those little hairline cracks. So I'm just going to reinforce this whole piece once we get a chance. But for right now, we're just doing it a tiny little bit at a time. I've gone through and added a second and third piece onto the back of this. This corner feels really good now. This corner was super weak. So now I'm just going to go and we'll kind of finish off this top lip. Kind of get that looking pretty. You're never going to see it, but it is a strength thing. And the nicer the finish on the edge can be, the better the wood and everything's going to look. And I need to add a little bit right there anyway. But yeah, this one looks pretty good. Pretty happy with how that's turning out. And did the same thing over here. On this side, kind of started building it up. The sun's kind of killing us here, but started building it up. And where my crack initially was, you can see where the sun's shining through now. You can see it, but there's fabric over it now, so it should be good. So let's pop these off and see how much movement we get. Hopefully we don't get any movement really. That'd be nice. That one looks like it held really straight. Probably mess it up when I gotta pull this one off. I'm gonna have to rip my wax paper. There it goes. Yeah, that one held really nice. Cool. 1 for 3. See how much of a difference this one makes. This is the one that probably will pop if it does. If any of them are going to, this is probably going to be the one. Looked like it held pretty steady. I think it's going to work. Awesome. So now we can start working the back as a solid unit. Looks pretty good. Again, the big thing was I just want to keep it in line, because whoever did it before, everything was just kind of like free floating and all weird. But that looks pretty good. Again, the only spot I'm seeing really is right here. That just needs to pop out a little bit, and we got it. In fact, I might even just grind that little tick off of there, and we got it. So I shall carry on and bring you back when we got at least one of these big holes finished. Move our brace back too and just see how much movement we get from that. Oh, that wasn't bad. Now how straight do we look now down the side of it? It's not too bad, considering obviously we can't push out too much here because that's where the tank is. There's absolutely no flex there. This still, I feel like this still needs to come out maybe a hair. Not too bad though. I like it. Well, this side needed a little more redneck bracing to get it to where I was happy with it. This one over here, I took a board and just kind of went up, you know, all the way up. And I got these little fibers in the way now, but it didn't appear that it needed any bracing. It felt like it was pretty straight, both directions, both this way and up and down. So I went with it, and I did a full piece on the back side. Went ahead and glassed it in, and as it would get dry, I would just keep pulling it taut, you know, to keep the fiber from caving in, kind of. And then I tried to make sure here it's not sticking out past the fiberglass. I did a pretty good job. There's a few little fibers here that once it gets hardened, if you can see those, once it gets hardened, we'll go in and kind of have those removed. But then I'm going to take a piece of the mat rather than the cloth. Again, this is the cloth, this is the mat. And I'm going to put it inside. We're going to cut it to that exact size, because the thickness is just about perfect for what we need. So I think that's going to work. This isn't quite hard where it needs to be. It's almost there. So I'll get that where it's good and hardened. I mixed it up with a little less hardener because I knew it was going to take me a little while to get it coated real good. So pretty happy with that, because it's really good and contoured. I don't want to do a bigger piece than that. I probably should have done that in 2 pieces. It's just kind of hard to, especially when you're working against gravity, it's just kind of hard to keep it all there. And then both of the ones over on this side that I have repaired now have kind of 2 layers on them. Oops. So it looks pretty good on the back side. Front looks like a hot mess right now, but we're gonna fix that. Had to work this angle first. I'm hoping when I go to pull this loose, it wants to kind of stay put. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to kind of, you know, go as a cross angle. And then this one, this little piece right here, I got just a little bit high. It's pushed out just a little bit too far, so I'm gonna hit that with a sander before we put the other layers on. At least start kind of fresh. It's not, or flush. It's not sticking out too bad, but. And this one I did a decent job of keeping that pretty straight. Kind of hard to see, but you know, it's not terrible. So I'm okay. That's workable. I'm okay with that. It's not as good as that one over there, but it's workable. I think we can make it work for us without ripping it all back out. I've been working on trying to get that framing section out of there while I'm waiting on in between fiberglassing, and I gotta say, that sucker was in there. I had to like hack it apart. I've got a brace under the floor back there. I shut this cutter off, and I just plasma cut it out of there. I had to bring the hose back because I had a fire, but you know, gotta keep life interesting. Fires seem to be my thing lately. Now we gotta get that out of there. and then I gotta get the new one in there. So. Yuck. Yeah, if we'd have left that in there, that's just gonna continue to rot. There's not much left of it anyway. It was 1/8 inch, and it's definitely not 1/8 inch now. There's where my fire was. Go get a screwdriver and clean all that stuff kind of out of there. So I'm afraid if we would have left that in there, this rot would have just continued, and eventually you wouldn't have a frame at all. And then we'd have to undo all of our cabinetry and everything we'd just put in to redo this, and then I would have been mad. That right there is where I ripped it to repair that. I thought I could just hit it out, but nope. Well, I'll get all of that out of there. We'll get some framing in here. Get this dude fixed up. Well, I've got that first piece of framing kind of all set up in there, ready to go. And again, we're going to do it a little different than it was from the factory. So we went from this super thin nastiness, that was the back piece, to that. And that looks a lot prettier than what we had to start with. But yeah, this whole back end was just kind of floppy from the factory. You know, your bed is coming in back here. So we're going to try and beef that up just a little bit. Shall we? I did go along and cut out all the sharp edges, because if you look at my arm, I got tired of getting into those. Even with gloves on, I'd catch myself on them. So I went in and just kind of cut out, smoothed it out a little bit, because they had just brushed on the resin and it had just ended where it ended. And when we went to pull the flooring, well, when the flooring just rotted out of it, all these little sharp edges were around and they kept catching me. And I cut this one off, cut it straight. Well, it's not really straight, but cut it where it's not sharp. And then I tried to leave some where we can attach back to it. We're gonna put a fiberglass shower board in there and then caulk around it to waterproof it. But I wanted to leave enough where we can attach it back to where it needs to go. Well, I've almost got the frame for the back kind of built up. I've got the two main rails that are going back where they need to be. They're permanent welded down the sides and the bottom. I just need to hit the top. And then boxing in our little side pieces here. So we're about to get it. The bad thing is everything kind of has to be tack welded, take it out, fit it, come back out, make another weld, take it in and fit it, because I have to weld everything out here, permanent weld, before I put it in the trailer, because all of these welds are around fiberglass. The only ones that aren't around fiberglass are those two pieces right there. I didn't do a great job because I cut these by hand just with a cutoff wheel, but you have to cut the corner. I didn't have to go that that extreme, but cut the corners on them and then they line up really nice. Just notch it out. So that's the way I do it. I don't know that that's the right or the wrong way, but that's the way I do it. And then when you go to put it in, the corner lines up well because it's not hitting. It's the thing with bending something this thick. It's not thick steel, but when you're going and putting it at a 90 degree, you get a little bit of a curve in there. So just notch the corner, throw it up in there, and it does fine. Well, I've got the frame all welded in, and I think it looks okay. It feels really strong. I stood on it out here on the very edge and kind of bounced a little bit. I don't want to bounce too hard because none of this is attached, but it seems fairly strong. I still would like to gusset from here to the frame on both sides, from kind of where that outrigger goes out there back, and it'll be kind of hard to weld. I may have to pull the tires just temporarily one at a time to get that welded in there, but thinking about doing that and then going from the center point to the center point just to add some strength, but it feels fine. Painted it with 415. I'll paint the rest of the frame and we'll get this thing looking ship shape. I think that looks okay, and I definitely like the modification we did back here. We're going to be able to drop There were boards down here that were the flooring, and so they were just glassed in to the frame, which provided quite a bit of strength and structure, but when the boards rotted out, the whole floor just kind of fell away. So we'll put a strip of aluminum underneath here and push this up. I've got a center point jack in it. I don't want to push up on it too much. And then I cut the corners. I'm cutting corners. Cut the corners here so we wouldn't, hopefully, I got to repaint that little area so that we wouldn't, hopefully wouldn't put a hole in the fiberglass there. And I trimmed the corner right here too. Looks okay. Not the best weld job, but it will do what it needs to do. And then up here, I'm pretty well done with all of the glassing on this side as far as the fabric is concerned. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera or not, but look at this patch panel down here. It's about as perfect as I can get it, given the limited tools and experience I have. That looks, I'm happy with that. Got one little low spot right there. Other than that, it looks pretty good. So there shouldn't be too much more to do to this side. I did go put another piece of mat on the back, so we've got 2 layers of mat on the back, 2 layers of mat in the middle, and then a layer of fabric on the front. I think that'll do just fine. I mean, obviously the edges need sanded, but it looks pretty good. And I've worked a little bit up here on those patches I did. This other side, however, oh, what a hot mess that is. So the back side I'm done with. This should have gone across and would have ended over here, but I don't think I'm going to worry about it. It doesn't really hold anything, and I've given it enough structure up here now. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm pretty well done on the back side. This has the little strips and pieces and everything as I kept putting it together, and then I took one whole piece and went down. So that now is pretty well done on the back. Front side, however, is just kind of a hot mess. I'm gonna have to spend some time sanding this. It's straight, you know, as far as lined up and everything, it's pretty straight. It just needs a lot of love up front. But the good thing is we're done inside, pretty much, so now we can jump in and start ripping out flooring up here. I didn't want to rip out anything until we kind of had the back stabilized because it's getting pretty weak. So now that we've kind of got that where we can secure all the flooring and the bottom of the fiberglass pieces to the frame, we should be good. Now I could have used C-channel here, but I did have them go ahead and make the Z because of the way this fiberglass tucked in. And if I'm gonna have them make one, might as well have them make a couple. So that's what we did. It should work fine. Allowed it to fit in here a lot nicer without cutting all of this out. And I did my little tape trick on the corner here. And this one I have just taken the angle grinder and just smoothed it off. Turned out pretty nice. Over here I have not ground it down, so that's the high build of it. That's what it looks like. And you just take the grinder and just make it the same height as the rest of the surface, and it ends up looking pretty good. You know, you back everything with fabric, and then on the top we just need the resin. It will eventually crack probably, but there's no real way to wrap that and get it to be a nice smooth corner. And that's going to have a cover over it. So hopefully it won't crack, but it could, since it's all just resin. But it's only gonna be, you know, just a teeny tiny bit, filling in the voids there. So that worked. It worked really well. All of these have been reinforced on the ones that were weak. This one, that one would have had a lip that came up just like this. Has this little lip. That one over there had that too, but I'm not going to put it back on there. There's no need. It's not a necessary piece. I did strengthen it back up. I had a crack right there, and I can move it, and it'll move the whole trailer. So that one is good. All of these felt fine. These felt fine, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. So I left all those. The original glass was good. We left it alone. These are strong. So I think all the glassing except for this front panel, and there's a couple little spots along here. You can see it better on this side, where it's just kind of busted off where they've hit stuff with it. I'll have to build that back up. And a little bit of work in here. But other than that, most of the glassing is done. The heavy duty stuff is done. Fun times.